Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on putting together the Pilgrim Miniatures the World furniture. I know out there on Kickstarter some people have been voicing concerns of putting together all the intricate pieces. It's easily bendable. You can really ruin the set if you're not too careful. So I wanted to just take some time, look at that, show you the process that I use to make sure that I didn't mess up any of the pieces. But hopefully this helps out some of you all. So let's go take a look at that.
The next one is the trickiest. This one is the Kickdrum. Just be careful with this little pedal right here. Make sure you don't rip that piece. Use your fingernail to kind of push that through. Be careful with those circular pieces because they do actually have notches on them. As you can see, you don't want to tear those notches. We definitely need that for putting this Kickdrum together. So what we'll go ahead and do, again, you'll feel where the perforated lines are and bend along those lines. And you'll just bend these slowly. These are smaller curved pieces because a Kickdrum should be circular. And this one, we want it to be a circle, just like that. So you may have to wiggle a little bit, just work on letting it have a little extra give so that way you can bend it into a circular shape. Now this is the back of the Kickdrum. That's the side that faces the audience, which will be going on this side. So it will be going on the back. And then, of course, this one with the little pedal, or rather not pedal, but the little drum. It will go on the side with the pedal. So we'll go ahead and do the back first, the side that's facing the audience. And you want it with the two notches oriented to the top and the one notch on the bottom. So that way it all slides in there. You can see the one notch and the two notches up top. What I think I'll do on this one is start with the single notch first. We'll get that one put in place. Well, I can line it up. Just be careful not to bend that pedal. So you want it sticking out. Then we'll get this one, the front piece, on its individual notch, which is the pedal. It should just slip on there. Now we have it open like this. And we bend up one of these sides. And this may take a little bit of finessing. This one isn't being as friendly as, of course, the straight edged pieces, the square pieces, which is okay. We will take our time so we get it nice and neat. Okay, what I had to do was bend this piece a little bit more. I was bending each of the small squares, that way it has a little extra give there. Maybe that will help me line it up. Oop. This one is a little bit looser than the front one, not sure why, but it is. I'll do the same for the second set of notches. This side doesn't fit as nicely as this side. See how this one fit all nice and neat and flat? So I'm gonna just with my fingernail here, just gently kind of rub the edges, see if that'll help with fitting it in here. I think that's as good as I can get that one. There we go. I went ahead and just went around the edges, flattened them down a little bit, made sure that they weren't raised up. Now we have our kick drum, one of the harder pieces in this set, for the base game at least, to put together. You will have a bit of a gap at the top, which is fine. Don't worry too much about that one. These pieces don't exactly line up, so we're good to go as far as the kick drum goes. Next, I'll go ahead and show you one of the tables and then one of the chairs. They're a bit unique because you have two of these pieces that fit into each other, so that way it makes a three-dimensional stand, and then the top flat piece for the table or the chair. The tables are the ones that are square, and the chairs are the round ones up at the top of this board. And some of these tables won't come out exactly, like this one still hung on to that little tab piece on here. So I just kind of grab it with my fingernail. And then bend it back down, just kind of wiggling it free. And it's okay if there's a little bit left in there. Might be able to get it out later whenever we fit all the pieces in there. Again, the damaged side will go down, and this nice flat wooden side will be what's facing up. Next, pop out the stand. There should be two pieces to make the stand for a table and a chair. And you can use your fingernail to kind of guide it, so that way it breaks right on that perforated edge and doesn't give you an extra piece like I had on the top of the table. So for the tables, it has these two pieces which slide in together. To make a three-dimensional stand here. And then we'll just take the top piece, of course, damage side down, and then each one of the notches fits on here. And you can just work your way around, just doing one notch at a time, making sure it's as flush as you can get it inside of there. It should fit pretty nicely, pretty snug, which is good because you want it to remain stable. You just want to stay calm throughout this entire piece, so that way you don't end up messing it up, bending your boards, breaking any of the pieces, or warping any of those notches, because then that would be an issue. Then you couldn't put this thing together. But here's our table. Damage side is down, so whenever you damage it, you would just flip this table upside down to show it's been damaged. Very nice. We'll put that aside. And then we'll go ahead and make one of these chairs next. Again, using your fingernail along this perforated edge for the notch, to make sure you don't get any of that extra piece hanging out in there, because it is much harder to pull it out once you separate it from the board. And it's okay if it just drops down on the table. It's not going to ruin the board at all. Again, with this one, use your fingernail a little bit, make sure it breaks at the perforation for the notches, so you don't get any of that extra like hanging Chad piece on there. Oh man, even though I did that, it still had, if you can see it, a little bit of the hanging Chad just sticking out in there. So I'll have to grab it as best as I can with my finger. Just pull it out. There we go. That one actually broke out pretty cleanly. Did a pretty good job on that one. Okay. Next we'll put these two together, just like the table. It has a notch on the bottom of this stand and a notch on the top of this stand, and they just slide in together to make that three-dimensional stand. There we go, and you just make sure that it's nice and flush up against there, nice and even, as much as you can. I know that these aren't exact matches sometimes, but you just do the best you can, and it'll come out looking really good. And you just pick one of the notches to start with, and then work your way around. And now we have our chair. Now really, these aren't chairs per se, they're stools, but whatever. So we got one. So now we have our chair, our table, we have an amplifier, our speaker, and the kick drum. All here. Almost forgot about the other unique piece, which is the mic stand. Again, use your fingernail. The mic stand is very thin, so definitely don't want to ruin any of that. And it has some very small pieces. It has this somewhat circular piece. Again, take your time, making sure you don't get any of that paper in the notch left behind, because it just makes it that much harder later on to separate. And then it has this teeny tiny, just like moon shaped piece for the stand. Again, it has a notch in it, so you don't want to have any of that just hanging out there in the middle of that notch. And that one broke away pretty cleanly, if you can see. So this stand goes on the bottom of this one to make that three-dimensional shape, kind of like the table and the chair, just on a smaller scale. You just feed it into each other, just like that. And then this circular piece is the support for it. It just fits in there. This one I found, even with this set, they cut the notches a little bit too big, so it could just fall out. What you could end up doing is super gluing it in there if you really wanted to. Or every time you go and set up the board, you would just make sure that this bottom circular piece is on the bottom of the mic, and then just stand it up like that. So you always want to do it to where the notch is on the outside. And just kind of bend it there. And you want to over bend it a little bit, just to make sure it has enough give, so that way you can shape it to the way that you need it to match up with these pieces. And again, the black square down here is at the bottom, and this should be at the bottom as well. So let me move over to the side so that way you get a bit of a different angle here when putting it together. And you don't want to give too much excessive pressure on the side that you've already put in there, because you could end up bending the notch or bending this piece. So I pretty much focus on just this notch that I'm working on to shove it in there as best as I can. I also support it with my finger in here, so that way you just have it right here in between your pointer finger and thumb, and then I'm able to focus a little bit more of that pressure to make sure that the notch goes in. It is a little bit more tricky on the side whenever you're putting the back on, because you can't really support it that well from the inside anymore. So this side I'm going to try a different method. We're going to start putting the back on, and then as the last step we'll close this piece. And this one again we're doing from the top down, so we're just gonna push it on there. That one has 3 notches that you need to fit in. That one actually came out a little bit easier, a little bit nicer than the first one. Alright, so once you have everything put together, popped out, put together like I have here, so I've got all the tables, the chairs, the speakers, the amplifier, the mic, the kick drum, all the chips, the little circular pieces, and of course the dice tracker. You're going to want to know, how do we put this all back in into a nice format in the packaging, so that way it doesn't get crushed and looks nice, presentable. So the cool thing that they thought of when I was designing this game and the packaging, they put a lot of space for storage. So here we'll go ahead and lift up these player boards, set them aside, and you'll notice that underneath there's this stage. So this stage goes up on top of the game board to simulate that stage, the performance stage for it. What you can do is flip this upside down, just like that, inside the packaging. So it'll come already like that. You'll just pick it up, flip it upside down, and that becomes another layer for you to store in your amplifiers, your tables, your chairs, whatever you need in there. One other thing you can do is take out this set of dice, put it up where the cards are, and you also have this now free if you wanted to put your amplifiers and speakers and mic in there instead. You're more than welcome to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all this stuff down in here. And then the dice tracker goes into this nice little cutout square right here. I don't know if the camera can catch that. You'll notice there's this little square piece right here. It's notched out. That's where that dice tracker goes. And these can just go up here or in this compartment, whichever one you feel like. And then you just cover all this back up with the player boards, so it's all nice, safe, and secure. And this little sponge helps to make sure all the pieces are lined up and safe and secure. So at the bottom, and down here, down there, box lid back on. And that is it. In my next one, I will be focusing on the expansion pack, which has a lot more pieces and a lot more intricate pieces. The hardest piece on this set was, again, the Kickdrum. But there are, in my opinion, a little bit more detailed and difficult pieces on the expansion pack. So look out for that one. And of course, thank you all for watching. I hope it helped you out. This is really all I'm doing this for. Not for likes, not for follows, not for subscribers or anything like that. I just wanted to do this for the community so that way they saw how I put my pieces together. And hopefully it gives you a little bit of peace of mind of how to handle the pieces, how to make sure you're not bending them, and gives you some insight on putting it all together. So that way you can get out there and play with your friends, family, whoever, a lot faster. Alright, thanks guys, and see you again next time.